Pamalogy is the logical philosophy of perfection. Pamalogy is short for polyastronomically maximized awesomology. Pamalogy asks what perfection is, whether it exists, and if so, what that means for us. Once you've passed a short course in Pamalogy, you'll be qualified to wear a certified Pamologist's thinking cap. Now, this is the introductory video for the course. Are you ready to take it? Do you believe in perfection? What is perfection? How about this definition? Perfection is that which includes every conceivable and inconceivable, every possible and seemingly impossible good thing in itself, and also excludes all bad things possible, even the slightest shade of anything bad. Let's think about this. Perfection is not merely the absence of anything bad, it's the inclusion of anything that could be good. If something doesn't include every possible good thing in itself, then it isn't perfection. By definition, there can be nothing better than perfection. And that means there can only be one perfection. If perfection is a reality, there can't be something else that's perfect, because whatever goodness something else has is either what perfection already is, or it's just a part of perfection. It's not the whole of perfection. So therefore, there can only be one perfection. Furthermore, perfection doesn't ever change. Perfection includes all good states of both being and doing. Any change in that means either it wasn't perfect or it isn't perfect, or both, because it would have lacked something good in one point in time that it had in another. Now, we often use the word flawless to describe what we call perfect, right? In Pamalogy, we're not merely speaking of flawlessness when we use the word perfection. We capitalize the letter P because we're referring to the all-encompassing, all-inclusive wholeness of singular perfection. Some might call the singular perfection we're talking about God. Just keep in mind that Pamalogy is not a religion. It's a philosophical system. It's not based on dogma, faith, or in tradition. It's based on logic and deduction. Thinking cap, remember? Is that fair enough? Now that we have a clear definition of what it means to be perfect, or what we mean by the word perfection, it only remains that we consider whether such a perfection is real. And if so, what that would mean for us. Can logic lead us to the answers? I actually think that it can, so that's why I've developed this course to explain my case for perfection and what that might mean for us. So here's our syllabus. In part 1, beginning with this course introduction, we're going to discuss the problem of evil. Now, a lot of people don't believe in perfection because they see bad things. They see suffering, war, famine, disease, death, injustice, corruption, all sorts of bad stuff. How can those things be if there's perfection, the way that we're defining it? So we expect flawlessness from perfection. Everybody does. Now in part 2, we're going to examine more closely some of the ways we considered in part 1 where bad stuff might exist and yet not exist at the same time, okay? So here's a clue to solving the puzzle. We'll be comparing dream theory, simulation theory, multiverse theory, multiple dimensions, and single universe theories in part 2, okay? And there's a lot more to it. In part 3, we're going to talk about the purpose of life, the purpose of conscious perception, and explore some of the possibilities of who and what you and I are as conscious perceivers. And in part 4, we're going to look at how Pamalogy compares to other systems of philosophical, religious, and political thought. And then finally, in part 5, we're going to ask you to personalize Pamalogy for your own understanding, for choosing your own direction, for enhancing your own worship and your own religion, and for maximizing the awesomeness of the world around you. So in part 5, we ask you to put on your thinking cap and think awesome thoughts. Now, here's our plan of evangelization. We hope that you're going to watch these online materials and that you're going to be setting up an appointment with a local chapter of the Pamalogy Society, like the one I'm in right now. This is the headquarters, actually. An authorized Pamalogy specialist is going to greet you there and is going to conduct an assessment with you and award you with a custom-made Pamalogy thinking cap if you've demonstrated a sufficient grasp of the logical philosophy of perfection that's adequate enough for sharing it with other people, okay? So, you're free to ask a professor or a student advisor if you can study Pamalogy for credit. I don't know what their answer is going to be, but it might be worthwhile. And finally, after you're certified, we hope that you'll stay connected to the Pamalogy Society by directing others to our program, if you could. And if you're up to it, help us to develop more advanced courses, some better PowerPoint presentations and videos, and maybe even become an authorized Pamalogy specialist yourself. So that's our plan. It's all about learning your purpose in life, learning about perfection, learning to share it with others, but mainly just contemplating awesomeness. Pamalogy is a very positive and encouraging thing to contemplate and share, to say the least. Literally, there's nothing better that you could be talking about because perfection is maximized awesomeness, right? Now, are you ready for it? So let's proceed to part 1 right away.